It's Tuesday morning. You tap your banking app. It spins. Spins. Then a polite little message. Service temporarily unavailable. You refresh. Same thing. You drive to the ATM. Black screen. No cash. Not because the money isn't there. Because the permission isn't there. That's the real system. Always was. Now listen closely. On the other side of the planet, in Shanghai, silver has been trading far above New York. Not pennies. Not pocket change. Double-digit dollars, a gap, a wound in the price, a Shanghai gap. Reports have shown premiums of $8, $10. And at moments, the kind of number that makes you sit up straight, $13 per ounce higher for the same metal, the same element, the same shiny lifeboat people mocked for years. And here's the part that should make your stomach tighten. That gap is not supposed to exist. In a free market, arbitrage closes gaps fast. Buy it where it's cheap. Sell it where it's expensive. Prices meet in the middle, like water finding level. Except, it's not happening. The gap isn't closing, it's staying open. Widening, laughing, which means one thing. The paper price is no longer the real price. Shanghai is paying more because Shanghai wants what matters. Metal, in hand, delivered, on time. Not a promise, not a receipt, not a contract, not cash settlement. The actual thing. And when a market is willing to pay $13 more per ounce for the actual thing, it tells you the truth the suits won't say out loud. The West is selling paper. The East is demanding reality. Imagine this. You spent 40 years building a retirement. You worked, you saved, you skipped vacations, you did it the right way. Then one morning the screen goes dark. Your numbers are still there technically, but you can't reach them, you can't move them, you can't turn them into groceries, or fuel, or medicine, because the system isn't a vault, it's a gate, and gates can close. That Shanghai gap is a flare in the sky, a warning shot. And the question is simple. If delivery is being paid for at a premium over there, what happens when the US wakes up and tries to do the same thing? What happens when everyone runs for the lifeboats at once? Let's talk about the mechanism, the hidden lever, because people keep repeating a bedtime story. They can't let it get that bad. The government will step in. The regulators will protect us. That's what the sleeping herd tells itself so it can go back to watching game shows. But the awakened few know something different. The system is not built to protect savers. It's built to protect itself. And it survives by changing the rules. Mid-game, let's do the math. A standard good delivery silver bar is roughly 1,000 ounces. 1 bar. If Shanghai is paying $13 more per ounce, that's $13,000. On 1 bar, $13,000. For doing nothing fancy, just moving real metal to the market that needs it. If arbitrage were alive, the biggest banks on Earth would be sprinting across oceans, planes, ships, armored trucks, all day, every day, closing that gap. So why aren't they? Because arbitrage only works when the system allows delivery, when shipping is simple, when insurance is available, when customs is smooth, when warehouses have metal ready, when the state doesn't put its boot on the hose. And today, there are boots everywhere. Delays, queues, paperwork, licenses, limits, temporary restrictions that have a funny way of becoming permanent. And that's why the gap can remain, because paper can teleport. A contract can be created with a keystroke. But physical metal can't teleport. It has weight. It has time. It has friction. It has borders. And when borders tighten, the paper market keeps pretending the world is frictionless. It isn't. That's the great lie. You've been priced on a screen that assumes delivery is easy, while the real world is showing you delivery is hard and getting harder. Now let's put a spotlight on the safety nets people worship. FDIC, SIPC, all those 3-letter badges people cling to like a security blanket. FDIC covers deposits up to $250,000 per depositor, per bank, per ownership category. That sounds comforting. Until you realize what it doesn't cover. It doesn't cover inflation. It doesn't cover purchasing power. It doesn't cover the price of eggs doubling. It doesn't cover your heating bill exploding. It doesn't cover a currency being watered down like cheap soup. It only covers your number staying a number. SIPC? People think it's insurance against everything. It isn't. It's about missing securities at a failed brokerage up to $500,000 with limits on cash. Again, numbers, paper, statements, not your lifestyle, not your dignity, not your ability to live. So when someone says, don't worry, you're insured, what they mean is, you're insured to keep losing slowly. Because they can print your dollars, they can't print your years. Now, here's the line that matters. This isn't a theory. This is math. If one market is paying double digits above another for the same metal, and the gap doesn't close, it means the bottleneck is physical. It means the bottleneck is delivery. And when delivery is the bottleneck, the real price is the delivered price, not the paper quote, not the headline, not the chart you're shown on television. And if you want a perfect example of this casino changing the rules, you don't have to go far. When crowds pile into a trade and volatility rises, exchanges raise margin requirements. Translation? The House raises the entry fee. In late 2025, futures margins on silver were raised, pushing the cost to hold a contract higher. That's not risk management for you. That's pressure on speculators, pressure on anyone trying to ride the wave. It's the dealer reshuffling the deck when the table starts winning, and it happens quietly. No headlines, no presidential address. Just an email, a notice, a policy update. That's how modern control works. Now, the Shanghai Gap doesn't just say silver is scarce. It says something deeper. It says the world is splitting into two markets. Market 1, paper, promises, claims, cash settlement. Market 2, physical, delivered, in hand. A coin you can hold, a bar you can stack, a thing that doesn't vanish when an app stops loading. The West loves paper because paper is controllable. Paper can be expanded. Paper can be diluted. Paper can be managed. Physical can't. Physical is stubborn. Physical is honest. And honest things are dangerous to dishonest systems. So what does a dishonest system do when honesty starts winning? It tightens control. It builds fences. It labels metal strategic. It treats it like oil, like chips, like weapons. Because that's what it is in a crisis, a weapon, a store of power. And in that environment, the naive idea that arbitrage will fix it becomes a joke. Arbitrage needs free flow. Arbitrage needs open pipes. But what we're watching is pipes being squeezed, not just in one country, across the world. Imagine this. You walk into your local bank. You ask for a larger withdrawal. Not crazy, just enough to feel safe. The teller smiles like a flight attendant during turbulence and says, "We don't have that much cash on hand." So you ask when, and they say, "We can order it." Order it, like cash is a product, because it is. And then you wait, and while you wait, the limit changes, 2,000 a day, 500 a day, by appointment only, due to increased demand. That's how it starts, not with sirens, with inconvenience. Now add the next layer, digital money, programmable money, money with rules attached. You don't need a conspiracy theory to see where this goes. You just need a memory. Every crisis becomes an excuse. Every temporary measure becomes a habit, and habits become policy. Imagine this. Your pension hits your account, but you can't spend it on what you want. You try to buy a generator, declined. Merchant category, not permitted. You try to buy extra food, flagged. Unusual activity. You try to buy precious metals. Suddenly there's a cooling off period. Extra reporting, extra forms, extra delays. All for your protection. And in the middle of that, gasoline jumps, groceries jump, rent jumps. Your dollars are still there, but they buy less every week. Your retirement becomes a melting ice cube. You can watch it shrink. And the people who did this will look you in the eye and tell you it's transitory. It's not transitory, it's structural. It's the whole design. Because debt requires devaluation. That's how they pay the bill. They don't pay it by working harder. They pay it by making your dollars weaker. Quietly, relentlessly. Now let's bring it back to that $13 Shanghai Gap. Because it's not a curiosity. It's a message. It says, physical metal is being repriced by reality, and the paper system is falling behind. And when paper falls behind long enough, paper doesn't suddenly become honest. Paper changes the rules. Paper delays delivery. Paper offers equivalence. Paper offers cash settlement. Paper offers you the value, not the thing. But in a real crisis, the thing is the value. If you're a retiree, you already understand this in your bones. When the power goes out, you don't want an IOU for electricity. You want a flashlight. When the car won't start, you don't want a promise of fuel. You want gas. When the system shakes, you don't want a statement. You want something outside the system. Now, some people will say, but I own silver in my account. And maybe you do. Maybe you own a symbol, a ticker, a slice of paper wrapped in nicer paper. But there's one question you must ask. Can you take delivery? Not, can you sell it? Anyone can sell a claim. Can you take delivery in a reasonable time, at a reasonable premium, without permission, without delays, without excuses? Because if you can't, then what you own is counterparty risk. That means your asset depends on other people behaving. Custodians, warehouses, market makers, authorized participants, clearinghouses, exchanges, regulators. That's a long chain, and chains break. Physical metal in your possession is different. No counterparty, no middleman, no permission. Just you, being your own central bank. That phrase scares the system for a reason, because central banking is power, and they don't want you to have any. They want you in the herd. They want you sedated. They want you calm, right up until the moment you're trapped. We don't do sedation here. We do preparation. Now, let's talk about the trap. because once the gap exists, it feeds on itself. Shanghai pays more. Metal flows there. Western inventories thin. Premiums rise. Delivery times stretch. And then the headlines start. Shortage. Supply chain. Unexpected demand. And then, almost like clockwork, the rules, limits, higher margins, more reporting, more friction. It's the casino telling you the exits are temporarily unavailable. Now imagine this. It's a Friday afternoon. Markets are jittery. News breaks of liquidity stress. Some big institution is under review. The screens flicker. You think, it's fine. You've heard it before. Then your broker app goes into maintenance. Your bank app goes into maintenance. Phones are busy, and the weekend starts. Long. Quiet. And you realize something. In a digital world, they can lock the doors with a button. And you can't argue with a button, but you can opt out. You can take some of your savings out of their theater, out of their spreadsheet, out of their permission system. That's the exit. Physical silver and physical gold. Not as a bet, as a seatbelt, as an insurance policy you can actually hold. Because in a crisis, the best time to buy a fire extinguisher is not when the kitchen is already burning. Now, I want you to picture the next part. Because future pacing is how you beat denial. Imagine this. 6 months from now, your neighbor's angry. He did everything right. He stayed in bonds. He stayed in cash. He listened to the talking heads. Now his grocery bill is up again. His insurance is up again. His property taxes are up again. He's working part-time at 70 to cover the gap. And he's furious. He starts blaming greed. He starts blaming stores. He starts blaming everyone except the money itself. Because nobody taught him the truth. The truth is, inflation isn't a mysterious weather event. It's policy. It's the invisible tax. And the people who print the money never suffer from it. You do. Now imagine this. At the same time, you're not panicking. You're not euphoric. You're steady. Because you already moved a portion of your savings into something that can't be printed. You didn't go all in. You didn't gamble. You simply stepped out of the path of the train. That's what metals are. Stepping out of the path. They are survival assets, freedom assets, bearer assets. And in a world where rules change overnight, bearer matters, because bearer means you don't need permission. Now, let's address the objection. Isn't silver volatile? It is. Well, yes. So is a storm. But you don't judge a lifeboat by how pretty it looks on a calm day. You judge it by whether it floats when the ship tilts. Silver isn't meant to impress your friends at a dinner party. It's meant to survive what's coming. And the Shanghai gap is telling you the world is already making that decision. They're paying up for real metal. Not for paper, not for promises. Now think about the psychology of this. The herd sees a headline and shrugs. Another spike, another dip, whatever. But the awakened few see a structural crack, a crack you don't get to ignore. Because cracks don't heal by themselves. They widen. And when they widen, people stampede. And when people stampede, the rules change faster. That's why you act before the herd moves. Not because you're smarter, because you're awake. Now, I'm not telling you to trust me. I'm telling you to trust what you can see. A gap of $8, $10, $13 between Shanghai and the West, that's not normal. That's not healthy. That's a sign the system is losing its grip on the physical market. And if the physical market slips away, paper becomes a costume, a mask, a story. And stories end, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. Now here's the final piece. What happens when the U.S. experiences its own Shanghai gap at the retail level? You've already seen hints, higher premiums at dealers, longer delivery times, out of stock, back orders. And when it accelerates, you will hear the same phrase over and over, supply constraints. But you will feel the truth. The truth is demand is trying to escape paper, and paper hates escape. So paper will build a cage. Digital money, more reporting, more friction, more control. And if you think that can't happen here, remember, it always happens here eventually. Every empire believes it's the exception, right up until it isn't. So what do? You don't panic, you don't bet the farm, you don't chase headlines. You simply remove counterparty risk. You hold a portion of your wealth in something outside the system, something real, something you can touch. Silver, gold, real money. Not because you want to get rich, because you want to stay free, because you want to sleep, because you want to look at your spouse and say, we're going to be okay. Because you want to look at your grandkids and know your life's work won't be erased by a policy memo. Imagine this. The day comes when they announce temporary restrictions. People rush to banks, lines form, ATMs run dry. The news says, there's no reason to worry. And the herd repeats it like a prayer. But you don't need to pray, because you prepared. You're not trapped behind a screen. You're not trapped behind a promise. You have something that doesn't require their approval. That is the quiet power of physical metal. That's what it means to be your own central bank. Now, if you want to survive what's coming, stay awake. Subscribe to Currency Rewind. Not for entertainment, for protection. Because the Shanghai gap is not a meme. It's not a rumor. It's the market telling you the truth with a price tag. And prices don't lie. People do. One last thought. The system doesn't collapse like a movie. It collapses like a dam. First, tiny leaks, then hairline cracks, then a roar you can't unhear. That $13 gap, that's the crack. And the water is already moving.